Have you ever felt like your mind is about to explode? Like there's a silent scream inside you, begging for relief, but no one listens. Sometimes anxiety doesn't come screaming. She shuffles along in silence. It starts with a slight, almost imperceptible restlessness. But suddenly, you're there, heart racing, hands cold, thoughts confused, unable to breathe properly. You try to hide it. You try to appear strong. You try to go on with your life as if everything is fine. But inside, everything is falling apart. And that's when you ask yourself, where is God when my soul is like this? If this question has ever echoed within you, this message was made especially for your heart. None of this is by chance. Jesus speaks to you, and he brought you here for a reason that goes far beyond what you imagine. Maybe you've sought help, advice, prayers, and yet you still feel this emptiness, this fear, this pressure that makes you think you're about to lose control. But there is something no one has told you, a spiritual truth so powerful it has been ignored by many, but not anymore. This crisis you are facing now is not the end. No matter how strong it seems, no matter how tired your soul is, what is about to be revealed can completely transform the way you see your pain. And no, this is not just another video, it's a date. A sacred moment between you and the one who knows every detail of your suffering and who chose this exact moment to speak to you. Most people never realize this, but today you will, because when Jesus speaks to you, something changes. Something breaks, something heals. This message will touch deep wounds that you have hidden for so long and will show that even within your worst anxiety crisis, there is a path to liberation, peace, and renewal. You will understand that what seems like a breakdown could be the beginning of your healing. And yes, Jesus is about to speak. Take a deep breath, open your heart, and prepare yourself, because what comes next could change everything. Before continuing, take a deep breath and allow this message to penetrate the deepest place of your soul, because what you're about to hear isn't just an explanation. It's a revelation, an answer that your heart has been searching for a long time. And no, you are not here by chance. Jesus speaks to you, and it is he who has brought you to this moment. How many times have you cried in silence? How many times have you felt crushed inside, trying to look good on the outside? How many nights have you been awake, unable to calm your mind, without peace in your chest? What you are feeling, this anxiety that suffocates, Jesus sees it, he understands, and he has something to tell you today, but for that, you need to stay here. Every word that follows carries healing, carries release. There is something that Jesus warned about, something extremely important about this crisis you are experiencing. And you need to hear it before you leave this video. Don't get distracted. Don't jump, stay. Because this could be the word that God prepared just for you. And if this message is already touching something inside, write in the comments, "I trust in Jesus." Yes, declare it in faith, even if your soul is in pieces right now. Your comment could be the light that someone else needed to read today. Maybe someone is on the verge of collapse, and your statement is the sign they needed not to give up. And if this video is already touching something in you, click the like button, not for me, but so that more people who are screaming inside, like you already screamed, can be reached. This is also evangelizing. This is also faith in movement. Get ready, because what comes next will touch where no one has ever been able to touch. Imagine yourself trapped in a place where no light comes in, where everything seems too cramped, too dark, too silent. Now imagine that this place is not a room, not a cell, but your own interior, your soul, your heart. That's exactly how Jonas felt, swallowed by a big fish, but above all, swallowed by his emotions. He couldn't see a way out. He couldn't breathe properly. He couldn't feel the ground. It was as if he had been swallowed from within. A scream caught in the throat, an anguish that no longer fit in the body. Jonah wasn't just inside a fish. He was in his crisis, inside your pain, inside yourself. And how many times on your most difficult days have you felt this way too? As if I were living but not breathing. moving but without direction, smiling on the outside but screaming on the inside. Anxiety doesn't drag you down all at once. She starts out subtle, like someone who doesn't want anything. An accelerated thought, a worry about something that might not even happen. A nameless fear, but when you realize it, you're already at the bottom of your own sea, sinking in silence. And it is there in this depth that Jesus speaks to you. Jonas, in his darkest moment, did something that many forget to do when the soul is suffocated. He cried out. He didn't try to feign strength. He didn't try to rationalize the impossible. He just did what he could. He opened his mouth in the middle of the darkness and said, "In my distress, I cried out to the Lord, and he answered me." This is in Jonah 2:2. And this is not just a biblical memory. It's a key because there are people right now watching this video with heavy chests, heavy hearts, tired eyes from holding back tears. And maybe, like Jonah, you think God has forgotten you, that he turned his face, that too much time has passed and nothing has changed. But what if I told you that rock bottom, where you believe you are, is exactly the place where God builds new beginnings? What seems like an end to you is a new beginning in his hands. Anxiety is not cool. It's not an exaggeration. It's not a lack of faith. She is real. She hurts. And she gets tired. It's tiring in a way that even those close to you can't understand. And sometimes the person who needs help most is the one who is silent, the one who doesn't even have the strength to ask for help. It was like that with Jonas, and that's why this story resonates today. Because it's not just about a prophet and a fish, it's about you, who's feeling crushed inside, about to get lost in thoughts you can't control. But there is an answer. There is a voice that still speaks. And today, that voice is saying, "I see you deep down. I hear you even in the silence. And I still have plans for you." Jesus speaks to you. And maybe you're hearing this message right now, exactly because he wants you to know this anxiety attack is not the end. She seems to be drowning you, I know. But there is something beyond this moment. There is air for your lungs. There is peace for your heart. There is an outstretched hand, even when everything inside you screams that you are alone. And that hand is that of Jesus. He doesn't expect you to understand everything. He doesn't demand that you overcome everything alone. He just wants you to cry out. Because the cry doesn't have to be beautiful, it needs to be true. Jonah didn't say a long prayer, he just screamed from within his pain. And that was enough to touch the sky. Maybe you're surrounded by people, but you still feel suffocated. Maybe you pray, but you think God is silent. Perhaps you have already thought that you are too broken to be restored. But listen, God specializes in new beginnings that emerge from chaos. The place where you feel most lost may be the place where he will most reveal to you who you are in him. Jonah only understood the power of God's presence when he lost everything that gave him security. And maybe that's your journey now. Take away everything that distracts you so that you realize that even in the darkness, Jesus speaks to you. If this word is touching your heart, write in the comments, "Jesus sees me deep down." Declare this even if it's hard to believe right now. Because your comment could be the one that reaches someone who also feels at the bottom, like Jonas. It could be the breath of faith that was missing for another afflicted soul. And if this message is awakening something inside you, something that even you couldn't access anymore, click the like button. Yes, click. Not because someone told you to, but because this word needs to reach other people who, like you, are feeling swallowed up by life. Your gesture is an act of faith. It is a way of evangelizing without saying a word. But that's not all. Something even more powerful is about to be revealed. Night fell, and with it came the weight of responsibility. The great leader was gone. Moses was no longer among them. And now, on Joshua's shoulders, rested the weight of leading an entire people. An unstable, tired people, full of doubts and memories of slavery. Joshua knew the promise. He knew the land was before them, but that didn't stop his heart from trembling. What if it goes wrong? What if I'm not enough? What if I fail? These questions, unspoken out loud, began to echo within him like silent thunder. Anxiety isn't always a scream. Sometimes it's just a repeated whisper, which slowly erodes confidence. And in that moment of insecurity and fear of the future, God didn't just see Joshua, he spoke to him firmly, with love, with authority. Do not be afraid, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. And that word echoes to this day, because you, like Joshua, may be facing a new phase, a new challenge, a big decision, and everything inside you screams that you are not ready. Anxiety about what hasn't happened yet is one of the biggest thieves of peace. You find yourself imagining scenarios, trying to control tomorrow, predicting failures before you even take the first step. But there is something God said to Joshua that also applies to you now. I am with you wherever you go. He did not promise an absence of challenges. He promised constant presence. And the presence of God is all you need to cross any desert and conquer any promise. Jesus speaks to you. And what he is saying right now is, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know that I will be with you. Anxiety makes us try to predict what has not been revealed. But God didn't call you to control tomorrow. He called you to trust today. Fear of the future is, in fact, a reflection of the lack of trust in God's care. But what if I told you that your biggest mistake wasn't doubting yourself? It was forgetting who's by your side. Josue felt small in the face of a giant mission. But God didn't increase his self-esteem. God just reminded Joshua of who he was. Because the peace that overcomes anxiety doesn't come from believing in yourself more. It comes from believing in Jesus more. If this word is strengthening you, write in the comments, God is already in my tomorrow. That's not just a nice phrase. It is a statement of faith that breaks the cycle of fear. It is a prophetic seed, and it could be exactly what someone on the other side of the screen needs to read to not give up now. And if this message is making sense to you, if it's opening your eyes to something you needed to see, click the like button. Because this helps this word reach other lives, other hearts that are also afraid of the future. Your simple gesture can be a channel of hope. It could be what God will use to change someone's destiny. Yes, this is also evangelizing. This is also faith in movement. Joshua was not perfect. He was human, like you, with insecurities, doubts, and fears. But what made him an extraordinary leader was not his courage. It was his obedience. Even though he was scared, he moved forward. Even though he was anxious, he trusted. Even without all the answers, he stood up. And that is what God expects from you today. Not an absence of anxiety, but the presence of faith. Enough faith to take the next step even with your heart racing. Enough faith to sleep at night even without knowing what the next day will be like. Enough faith to hand control over to someone who has never lost control of anything. Jesus is with you. He is already in your tomorrow. And what awaits you is not an abyss. It is a path guided by love. Maybe you're looking to the future with dread, thinking something is going to go wrong. But what if I told you that what God has prepared is better than anything you have ever imagined? Anxiety traps you in fear, but faith drives you towards the promise. And now it's time to decide. Are you going to continue feeding your fears, or are you going to start declaring the presence of God over your every step? Joshua heard, believed, and acted. And the story changed the history of the people, and his and yours can change too. Now, no need to wait for another signal. You are already hearing the voice of God. Jesus speaks to you, and he is saying, fear not because the path is easy, but why don't you go alone? He goes ahead. He sustains you. He opens the doors. It silences fear. And when he walks with you, even the desert becomes a path. Even the impossible becomes reality. If you need this strength, declare in the comments, I believe in the presence of God with me. It may seem small, but this act of faith can break invisible chains inside your heart. And it can awaken the dormant faith of someone reading it now. And here comes the most impressive part of this story. The future that scares you is already in the hands of the one who loves you most. Stay. Because what comes next will free areas of your soul you didn't even know were stuck. David ran. His heart was beating hard, not only because of the speed of his steps, but because of the anguish that burned inside. The man he served loyally now wanted him dead. Saul, overcome by jealousy and insecurity, pursued him with obsession. David, the same one who defeated Goliath, now hid in caves, forests, deserts. He was no longer the hero. He was the fugitive, the abandoned, the forgotten one. And that's when anxiety sets in, not just because of the uncertainty of the future, but because of the loneliness of the present. Because what hurts the most isn't always what happens on the outside, it's what screams on the inside. David felt that everything and everyone had turned against him. Friends avoided him, family members remained silent, and even those who followed him only wanted him as a leader, not as a man. He was surrounded by people and yet completely alone. Even if my father and mother abandon me, the Lord will take care of me. Psalms 27:10. He wrote this not in a palace, but in the hiding place of pain, because it is in these places where the soul screams in silence that God reveals himself most tenderly. The pain of abandonment is one of the deepest. It touches the root of identity. When the person who should be on your side walks away, you start to wonder if you really have value, if you are really loved, if it really has a purpose. And it is in this fertile ground for anxiety that the enemy sows the cruelest lies. You are alone. Nobody cares. Not even God listens to you anymore. But Jesus speaks to you, and he says, I never stopped being by your side. Human abandonment does not nullify the divine presence. In fact, it's often what allows you to realize who never abandoned you. And here is a truth that can set you free right now. The absence of people is not evidence of the absence of God. It is an invitation to intimacy with him. David was rejected by men, but chosen by God. Persecuted by a king, but anointed to reign. Forgotten by his own home, but remembered by heaven. And when no one reached out, God supported him with the invisible, the presence. He did not eliminate persecution, but he gave strength to endure. And that is the promise that hangs over your life now. Maybe you are dealing with people who ignore you, who hurt you, who left you. Maybe even inside your home, you feel as if you are invisible. But listen, invisible to the world is not invisible to God. When everyone leaves you, he welcomes you. When the world turns its back on you, it embraces you. When abandonment tries to suffocate you, his voice whispers, I care for you. What if I told you that this phase of silence and rejection is actually a preparation for something bigger? David would not be the king of Israel if he had not passed through the valley of solitude, because it is in pain that the heart is shaped. It is in absence that faith grows stronger, and it is in the cave that the warrior reveals himself. The anxiety you feel when you realize you've been left out is real. But it does not define your destiny, because whoever is with you is greater than any absence that hurt you. Jesus speaks to you, and he says to you today, I see you. I chose you, and I will sustain you. If this message found you in a place of pain, write in the comments, God, I trust that you are with me. This statement could be the silent scream that will break this feeling of abandonment. And your comment could be the anchor that someone needs to find today to keep from sinking. What the world calls rejection, God calls divine separation. Sometimes he allows certain relationships to break down, not to hurt you, but to protect you. People who would not understand the call on your life cannot be with you when God decides to lift you up. It's not punishment. It's care. It's not contempt. It's direction. When David was left behind by his father on the day of the anointing, it was no accident. It was alignment, because what God has for you, no one can steal. Not abandonment, not loneliness, not silent tears on the pillow at night. What if everything you're feeling right now is exactly what will bring you closer to those who never leave you? What if the feeling of being alone is the push that leads you to the feet of Jesus? Because there you will realize that you don't need many to be complete. You just need Him, the God who cares when no one else cares, the Father who remains when everyone leaves, the Savior who became flesh so that you would never be alone again. If this word is hugging you right now, comment, "Jesus, you are my shelter." Perhaps this simple act of faith will be the turning point in your journey. Maybe today is the beginning of a healing that you thought was impossible. But that's not all. Something even more powerful is about to be revealed. Because there is a type of pain that goes beyond abandonment. It is internal chaos. When the mind doesn't silence and the heart seems out of control, stay with me. Because what you're about to hear will change the way you view this whole storm. Nobody could control Him. Not the chains, not the crowds, not the very screams of your soul. He lived among the tombs, cutting His own flesh, surrounded by death and dominated by a storm that no one saw, but everyone feared. The Gadarene man was trapped in himself. His mind was a battlefield, a place where peace hadn't entered in years. What lived in him had already destroyed everything: relationships, dignity, control, all. He was no longer seen as a human being, but as a threat no one dared to approach. And he himself, somewhere inside that mental confusion, had probably already given up on himself, until Jesus arrived. And He came to His feet, clothed and in His right mind. Mark 5:15. This phrase, which seems simple, actually carries one of the most radical transformations recorded in Scripture. That man who had been struggling before was now sitting up, still, lucid, dressed, in peace. Because when Jesus enters, chaos has to leave. When He speaks, the storm stops. When He touches, the mind aligns. Jesus speaks to you, and today He is saying, your mind is not a land of destruction. It is an abode of my peace. The lack of mental control, the uncontrollable fear, the racing thoughts that don't let you sleep, the silent outbursts that you try to hide. Jesus sees it all, and He doesn't avoid you because of it. On the contrary, He approaches. The anxiety that gnaws at your mind may have no face, but it has effects. You forget simple things, lose focus on work, react with impulses that later embarrass you, and inside you feel like you're losing control. You've tried techniques, meditation, distractions, but the relief is momentary. Because the root of this storm is not just on the surface, it is in the spiritual. And only those who are spirits can calm what the body does not understand. Jesus speaks to you, and He wants to remind you that your mind was created to reflect the glory of God, not the chaos of this world. You are not a prisoner of anxiety. He was not born to live in internal war every day. If this message is speaking directly to your heart, write in the comments, "Jesus, calm my mind." Your comment could be a bridge of faith, and it could touch someone who is feeling lost within themselves today. But here's a revelation you may never have heard. That Gadarene man was freed, but it began long before Jesus set foot in that region. It began when, in the midst of the confusion, he had a flash of lucidity and ran to Jesus. This means that even when everything within you seems lost, there is still a part of you that recognizes the presence of God. There is still a spark of conscience that pushes you in the right direction, and this proves that your mind, no matter how affected it is still reachable. Jesus does not wait for you to be in your right mind to help you. He enters the middle of the confusion. He visits graves, he faces legions. He cares about who everyone avoids. He loves those who can't even love themselves anymore. You may be experiencing emotional outbursts that no one sees, internal explosions that leave you exhausted. Sometimes you even pretend to be fine, but inside you feel like you're about to implode. Jesus speaks to you, and he says, "I have power over your mind. It's not just about physical healing. It's not just about visible miracles. It's about mental liberation. It's about giving you back your sanity, balance, discernment, clarity. It's about getting you to sleep peacefully again. Waking up without fear, walking without carrying the feeling that you are going to collapse at any moment. If this is touching some hidden part within you, comment, "Jesus, renew my mind." This could be the key to something new that He is starting right now within you. Don't ignore the signs. Constant forgetting, outbursts of anger for no reason, the sleepless nights, the invasive thoughts. All of these are symptoms of a war that needs spiritual intervention. And Jesus is offering this to you now. He doesn't condemn you. He doesn't criticize you. He doesn't say you're weak because you can't control. He looks at you as He looked at the Gadarene man, with compassion, with authority, with restorative power. That man was released because he exposed himself. He ran to Jesus. He didn't run away. And maybe that's what you need today. Stop running away and run to His feet, because that's where healing begins. And here comes the most impressive part of this story. That man, after being healed, wanted to follow Jesus. But Jesus said, "Go home and tell what God has done for you." He became a living witness. This means that what is your pain today will be your ministry tomorrow. What holds you back today, tomorrow will be your platform. What drives you out of control today, tomorrow will be your testimony. Because Jesus doesn't just calm the mind, He turns the past into a message. The trauma in calling, chaos on a mission. If this word made sense to you, leave it in the comments. I believe that my mind will be restored. Your testimony can begin now with a simple statement of faith, but that's not all. What you'll hear next will challenge even the beliefs you have about what healing is, because the next story reveals that sometimes all you need is a touch. A single touch of faith, and everything changes. In the midst of a crowd that had ignored her for 12 years, she decided to do the unthinkable. The blood flow woman had no name at that moment, only accumulated pain. She was invisible, impure, rejected, isolated. Every attempt at a cure had failed. Every doctor had given up. And along with the blood that drained from his body, his dignity, his strength, and his hope also drained. But that day, something changed. She heard about Jesus. And that lit a spark. A simple phrase welled up within her. "If I just touch His cloak, I will be healed." Matthew 9:21. That "if" was all that was left. And with faith and courage, she dragged herself through the feet, the looks, and the judgments. She extended her hand, and it rang. At the same moment, the bleeding stopped. But more than the blood, it was the cycle of humiliation that ended there. She was not just healed physically, she was restored emotionally. Jesus didn't let it go, He stopped. He looked around and He said, "Who touched me?" The disciples found it absurd. After all, the crowd was pushing Him from all sides, but Jesus knew that touch was different, because it wasn't a physical touch, it was a touch of faith. It was a silent cry of the soul, and He felt it. Because Jesus speaks to you even when you have no voice. He feels when His soul touches the sky, even if no one sees it. This woman represents all those who feel powerless, who have already tried everything, who are tired of asking for help and only receiving silence. Those who live with invisible pain that no one understands, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual. Maybe your anxiety attack has become a cycle. You try to resist, but the triggers catch you off guard. You pray, but nothing seems to change. You've even accepted that you're going to live like this forever. But Jesus speaks to you today. If you just touch me, something will change. Sometimes it's not about how hard you pray. It's about the faith with which you approach. If this word is sparking something inside you, comment, "Jesus, I touch you by faith." Your comment could be a step in healing, and it could be the boost another desperate soul needs today. There is something extraordinary here. That woman was not healed because someone prayed for her. She was healed because she had the courage to touch, and that touch was enough. This shows that there is a level of faith where you don't wait for someone to come to you. You go to Jesus. You cut through the crowd of your anxiety. You face the fear of judgment. You break with the inertia of pain and decide to act. Heaven responds to this attitude. Jesus is not indifferent to touches of faith. He stops everything to look you in the eyes and say, "Daughter, your faith has saved you." It's not just about healing, it's about identity. That woman had no name, but he called her his daughter. Have you been living as if you had no name? As if I were just one more in the crowd? As if your pain isn't important? As if God had more pressing things to do than deal with your emotional crisis? So listen to this. Jesus speaks to you. He knows exactly what you're up against. He knows the silent exhaustion of living on automatic. He sees the effort you make every day to keep smiling. And he's saying, today is your healing day, not because you're strong, but because you decided to touch me. If this message is awakening you to something greater, declare in the comments, "I believe in the power of a touch." Your faith, written down, can be the beginning of a miracle. There is a detail in this story that few notice. When Jesus stopped everything to find whoever touched him, he knew exactly who it was, but he wanted her to reveal herself. Why? Because healing is one thing, restoring is another. Jesus doesn't just want to heal your wounds. He wants to restore his identity. He wants you to know you are not defined by your pain, nor by your past, nor by your condition. You are defined by the look of Jesus, and when he sees you, he calls you by name. He calls you his daughter, of son. Beloved, and here comes something even deeper. She touched the cloak, but it was her heart that Jesus felt. This means you don't even have to physically touch it. All it takes is for your heart to move. You just need to pray truthfully. May you kneel in secret. May you sigh with sincerity. Jesus feels this. He responds to broken hearts. He hears what the mouth cannot say. It moves by invisible intentions. And when he perceives this movement, he acts. He restores, he heals. He returns it, he honors. If this message spoke to you, write in the comments, "Jesus, restore my identity." His testimony begins with a simple sentence of faith, and it can transform someone's world. But that's not all. What you'll hear next carries an even more disconcerting revelation. There are times when, even when we fail, Jesus continues to believe in us. The next story shows that even when everything falls apart, there is still grace. And you will discover that your mistake is not the end. It is the starting point for a new story. Peter knew exactly what he had done. When the rooster crowed for the third time, it wasn't just a sound in the air. It was like thunder inside his soul. He had denied Jesus 3 times, not because I hated it, but because I was afraid. Fear of being arrested, fear of dying, fear of being associated with the one he loved. The same Peter who promised to go to the end, who cut off the soldier's ear in defense of Christ, now found himself trembling before a servant girl, saying, "I don't know him." And then the look. Jesus, trapped, hurt, exhausted, turns his face and meets Peter's eyes. A look that said it all, but without condemning. Peter then runs away and weeps bitterly. Luke 22:62. This cry of Peter is the same one that many have today. It's not just sadness. It is a deep pain for those who see themselves as failures. The one who swore he would be strong fell. The one who thought he was prepared ran away. The same person who spoke of faith now hides in shame. How many times have you felt this? How many times have you promised yourself, "This time I won't make mistakes," and still he was wrong? How many times have you sworn that you would maintain control, that you would resist fear, that you would stand firm in a crisis, and when anxiety arrived, you broke down? This is what Jesus wants to talk to you about, because he does not look down on your mistakes. He looks with love and redemption. Jesus speaks to you even when you fail. He doesn't turn his face. He looks for you in the midst of shame. The look he gave Peter was not one of accusation, but of love, and that changes everything. Because there is a mistake that hurts, but there is also a regret that heals, and what Peter experienced is proof of this. Because Jesus had already prayed for him before the fall, before the crisis. He said, "Peter, the devil asked to sift you like wheat, but I prayed for you that your faith would not fail." In other words, Jesus already knew about the fall, and even so, he had already released intercession. He had already released grace. A restoration plan had already been released. If you have ever felt like a spiritual failure, comment now, "Jesus, restore me with your eyes." It's not your mistake that defines your story. It's his look that redefines everything. Pedro didn't end there. What seemed like an end was just a restart. And this is what Jesus wants you to understand. Even in your worst moment, there is still redemption. God's grace is greater than your mistakes, greater than your shame, bigger than your anxiety. Jesus' gaze does not expose you. He rescues you. And if you've ever felt the burden of failing God, if you've ever felt like you don't even deserve to pray, then listen, you're exactly the kind of person Jesus chooses to restore. Because grace does not choose the most perfect, it reaches the most broken. This is why, even after denying, Peter was called to lead. Because brokenness is the fertile soil where God plants his glory. There is something powerful about Peter's restoration. After the resurrection, Jesus doesn't just forgive him. He calls him to the shore of the sea, and he asks 3 questions that cure 3 denials. "Peter, do you love me?" And with each answer, Jesus returns purpose. "Feed my sheep." What does this mean? That Jesus doesn't just want to lift you up. He wants to send you. That he not only cleanses your guilt, but gives you mission back. Peter the denier becomes Peter the preacher. The man who cried in shame now stands up with courage. And you who feel paralyzed by the past, crushed by guilt, crippled by fear, Jesus is saying, "You are still my chosen one." If this message is restoring something within you, declare, "Jesus, I accept your grace." Because sometimes the only thing that separates you from restoration is the simple act of saying yes. And here comes one of the deepest secrets of this process. True healing is not in forgetting what happened, but in looking at it with the eyes of grace. Pedro never forgot what he did, but he was no longer a slave to it. He knew he failed, but he knew he was forgiven. He knew he fell, but he knew he was picked up. And that is the greatest power of redemption, freeing you without erasing your history. Because Jesus doesn't want to erase his marks. He wants to turn them into testimony. What used to hurt you now strengthens others. What made you cry now gives you the authority to console. If this message spoke to your heart, write in the comments, "My mistake is not my end." Your comment could be a turning point for you and an anchor for someone who is wallowing in guilt. But that's not all. And what is about to be revealed can heal one of the most silent pains that exist, the exhaustion of the soul that finds no rest. There is a story that shows that when everything seems lost, God sends sustenance from heaven. And maybe that's what you need now, no longer your own strength but divine provision. Elijah ran. A man of God, used with power, who made fire fall from the sky, who faced the prophets of Baal with supernatural courage, now fled. Not an army, but from a threat. Jezebel's voice echoed like poison in Elijah's soul. "Tomorrow, at this time, I will do with your life the same as you did with my prophets." The threat triggered a crisis, and the crisis pushed Elijah into the desert. He walked until he couldn't take it anymore, and under a juniper tree, he prayed to die. That's right, a prophet of God, someone who saw miracles with his own eyes, crying out, "Enough, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my parents." 1 Kings 19:4. How many times have you felt this way? Exhausted. As if the simple fact of breathing was already a burden. As if getting out of bed was a battle. As if nothing made sense anymore. Anxiety steals your sleep, tiredness becomes chronic, and even if you do everything you can, you feel insufficient. Elijah knew that feeling, an existential void that no praise fills, an emotional drain that no rest can solve, because the exhaustion he felt wasn't just physical. It was spiritual, it was existential. It was a collapsing soul, and perhaps right now you are in the shade of your own juniper tree. Not necessarily asking to die, but wanting to disappear. Stop everything. And it is in this place, at this extreme point of exhaustion, that God appears in a surprising way. Not with judgment, not charged, but carefully. An angel touches Elijah and says, "Get up and eat." And next to him there is bread baked over hot coals and a bottle of water. God does not begin with a sermon. God begins with sustenance. He understands that sometimes, before a spiritual response, you need an emotional rest. Before a direction, you need to be strengthened. Before continuing the journey, you need food. That's grace. This is compassion. This is Jesus speaking to you in the midst of your anxiety attack. I see your exhaustion. I know your fatigue. I understand the weight you carry. And before I ask you to get up, I came to feed you. If this message is healing something inside you, write in the comments, "Jesus, sustain me in the desert." This simple gesture could be the beginning of your restoration, and it can be a word of encouragement for someone who is also on the verge of exhaustion. The angel returns a second time, because God knows that a single word is not always enough. And he says, "Get up and eat, because the journey will be very long for you." This phrase carries a powerful revelation. There is still a way. Even when Elijah thought it was the end, God knew it was just a pause, not a withdrawal. To be healed, to find your purpose again. Maybe you're at the point in your life where everything seems to stand still, stagnant, no strength to continue. And Jesus is saying, "Get up, eat, there's still a way. I'm not done with you yet." Anxiety often convinces us that it's gone, that we will never get out of this cycle, but that's a lie. Because the same God who sustained Elijah sustains you today. And the most impactful thing is what happens afterwards. Elijah, strengthened, walks 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Horeb, the place where he would hear God, not in strong wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in a gentle breeze. A still voice, because God doesn't just take care of the body, He tenderly restores the soul. If this message spoke to your heart, declare in the comments, "There is still a way for me," because this could be the moment your soul finally finds rest. There is a hidden beauty in this chapter of Elijah's life. He thought he was alone, but God reveals that there were still 7,000 who had not bowed to Baal. What does this teach? That even when you feel isolated, you are not. There is a people. There is a promise. There is a mission. Elijah was called again, repurposed. God did not discard him. God rehabilitated him. And this is what Jesus is saying to you now. You are still needed. Your calling has not been canceled. Your life has not ended. You were just tired. And I have come to renew your strength. If you are feeling the Spirit of God speaking to you, say now in the comments, "I receive new breath," and share this video with someone who also needs to get back on their feet. You can be the angel who brings bread to the heart of another Elijah. And here comes the most impressive part of this story. The same Elijah who asked to die was taken to heaven without seeing death. A man who felt like a failure was honored. A man who lay on the ground was taken up in glory. This is what Jesus does. He transforms the end that your anxiety convinced you into the beginning that heaven has already written. You may be exhausted, but you are still chosen. You may be scared, but it is still called. You may be paralyzed, but there is bread in the fire of God and water in the fountain of the Spirit. Comment now, "Jesus, I believe in your restoration." And remember, your path is not over yet, but that's not all. What is about to be revealed will touch a pain that many hide out of shame, God's silence. There is a moment in life when the soul screams, but the sky seems mute. And what are you about to hear? It will change the way you understand God's silence. Job was silent. It wasn't the silence of someone who has nothing to say. It was the silence of someone who has screamed so much that they lost the voice of their soul. What he felt was not just the physical pain of the wounds on his body, nor just the absence of the possessions he had lost, or the emotional distance from friends who judged him instead of welcoming him. It was something deeper. Job was experiencing the silence of God, and this, for many, is the most difficult type of pain to explain. When everything around you falls apart and you pray, and the only answer that comes is the echo of your own cry. And maybe you felt exactly this way. Praying, asking for a sign, crying out for direction, and all he got was silence. Not a no, not a wait, but just nothing. The anxious heart begins to wonder, has God forgotten me? Does he hear me, or has he never been here? It is at this point that many lose faith, because we were taught to associate the presence of God with sensations, signs, movements. But what happens when he doesn't manifest himself as we expect, and when the sky seems closed, even with our hands raised? In chapter 13, verse 15, Job says something that disarms us. Though he kill me, I will wait for him. This is not ordinary faith, this is raw faith. Faith in the flesh. Faith of someone who doesn't feel it but believes, from those who don't understand but trust, because Job understood something that anxiety doesn't want you to understand. God's silence is not absence, it's preparation. It is exactly behind the scenes of our waiting that he's building something greater than we can imagine. If this message speaks to you, write in the comments, "Even in silence I trust." This simple act can be the thread of hope that holds someone in the middle of the desert. There is a secret hidden in this story, and few know this truth. God was as close to Job in the silence as he was when he spoke from the whirlwind. But anxiety tries to convince us that if we don't feel it, God isn't there. The truth is that God's love is firm enough not to bow to our urgency. And often, his silence is the protection that prevents us from making hasty decisions. Job received no answers, received presence, and that changed everything. At the end of the book, when God finally speaks, he does not explain the reasons for the pain. He reveals the greatness of who he is. And then something happens that completely transforms Job's experience. He stops looking for explanations and begins to surrender to trust. Before I knew you from hearing, but now my eyes see you. Job 42:5. The anxiety attack was not the end. It was the beginning of a new revelation. It was in silence that he was shaped to see God with his own eyes. If you are facing a time when God seems silent, comment now, "Jesus, even in silence, I know you are here." This statement has power, because it is not born from what you feel, but from what you choose to believe. And the most impactful thing is what God did afterwards. Job received everything double. But more than that, he received intimacy. And this is the greatest promise that Jesus makes to you today. The crisis will not be your mark. Intimacy will be. He is preparing you. He is maturing you. He is calling you to a place of faith where there is no room for doubt cloaked in sensations. Because faith is not feeling. Faith is trusting in the character of the one who promised. Anxiety wants control, but Jesus offers rest. And today he is telling you, even though you don't hear me, I am with you. Even though you don't see me, I have never left you. If this word touched your spirit, declare in the comments, "Jesus, I rest in you." This could be the key that will unlock the peace your soul is begging to feel. Job was not weak for questioning. He was human, and God did not punish him for his questions. God honored him for remaining. This needs to be said. God is not offended by your sincere questions. He welcomes your tears, even when you can't turn them into coherent prayers. Your pain has value. Your waiting has purpose. And his silence carries more presence than many noises in the world. Leave in the comments, "I remain even without understanding," because this isn't just a comment. It's a public testimony of your faith. And it could be the breath of hope that another soul is searching for. But that's not all. Because there is an even deeper truth to be revealed. What if God's silence is the sound of the construction of a miracle? What if what seems like absence is actually His closest proximity to your soul? What are you about to hear? It will change the way you view waiting time. The night was dark and the sea was rough. The disciples, experienced fishermen, fought against the winds and waves, but something about that storm was different. It was as if the chaos itself came to life and screamed louder than any hope. Water entered the boat, and safety gave way to despair. Everyone was on the verge of losing control. Meanwhile, Jesus slept. Unbelievable, isn't it? In the midst of the greatest crisis, in the eye of the storm, the Son of God rested in peace. But this isn't just a story about wind and sea. It is an exact representation of what goes on inside someone who suffers from anxiety. When everything around seems out of control, when emotions roil like raging waves, and the mind races like a boat about to sink, fear paralyzes and the heart screams for help. The disciples did what many of us do. They ran to Jesus and asked, "Lord, do you not care if we perish?" This question carries the weight of human despair. It is the cry of those who are tired of fighting the invisible. From those who have tried to keep everything under control and found that they can no longer do so. It is the cry of those who fear losing their own sanity. Jesus' response, however, did not come as a sermon or an immediate rebuke. He got up, he looked at the wind, and with divine authority he said, "Be still, wind. Be still, sea." Mark 4:39. And there was a great bonanza. The peace that entered that sea can also now enter your soul. If you need Jesus to calm the storm inside you, comment, "Jesus, calm my heart." This comment is not just a sentence, it is a cry of faith that can transform your mind. But what if I told you that the storm didn't come to destroy you, but to reveal who was in your boat? Sometimes God allows the waves to rise not to drown you, but to show that He still has dominion over everything. Anxiety deludes us with the idea that we are alone, that we have to manage everything. But faith reminds us that even when everything seems out of our control, it is still completely in Jesus' hands. What is leaving you breathless? What's keeping you up at night? The pressure of work? The uncertainty of the future? The traumas of the past? The feeling that everything is falling apart and you no longer have the strength to row? Take a deep breath and listen to this. Jesus speaks to you now. This anxiety crisis is not the end. It is I who controls the sea, and nothing escapes my hands. This moment could be exactly the turning point you've been waiting for. Because it is not the absence of problems that defines peace. It is the presence of Jesus. The disciples were still at sea when peace came. Nothing outside has changed, but something inside them was transformed. This can happen to you too. The storm may continue outside, but you can rest inside. If this message touched your spirit, write in the comments, "I trust in Jesus' command." Your comment may inspire faith in someone who is also struggling to keep their boat afloat. Jesus did not lose control, not for a second. He didn't abandon you halfway, and the most beautiful thing about this is that He doesn't just calm storms. He walks through them. He turns chaos into testimony. He takes the crisis that scares you and turns it into a stage to show that it is bigger than any fear. Anxiety says, "You're going to sink." Jesus says, "Come to me, and you will walk on these waters." This is the time to decide who you will listen to, fear or faith, the storm or the master, anxiety or the voice of Jesus saying, "It is I." Fear not. If this word gave you strength to continue, declare in the comments, "Jesus is in my boat." May this be the seal of your faith at this moment. Someone needs to read this and believe again. And here comes the most impressive part of this story. The sea was not calmed by the screams of the disciples. He was calmed by the authority of someone who has absolute dominion over everything. And that same authority is now acting in your mind. You may not see it. You may not feel it, But the Spirit of God is working in silence, calming every racing thought, every heavy breath, every knot in the chest. Jesus speaks to you. This crisis is not the end. I am leading you into still waters. Right now in the comments, I rest in the voice of Jesus and share this word with someone who's feeling like they're sinking. It could be just the thing that saves them. But that's not all. What's about to be revealed in the next moment, it will change the way you view control over your life. Because there is a freedom that is only discovered when you give up the helm and surrender it completely into the hands of Jesus. It was around midnight when the chains tightened the ankles, the hands were trapped, and the environment was dark, damp, silent. Except for the moans of the other prisoners, Paul and Silas were arrested. Not for a crime, but for freeing a life. Unjustly accused, severely flogged, abandoned in a cold prison, they could have given themselves up to despair. Anyone looking from the outside would only see two defeated, injured, exhausted men. But what happened in that prison has the power to transform your soul now. Because the prison of Paul and Silas was not just iron, it was also emotional. It was pain. It was frustration. It was a test of faith. Just like today, when you feel trapped inside your own mind, when thoughts become shackles and the heart seems enclosed by layers of anxiety that no one sees. You smile on the outside, but on the inside, you're handcuffed. But something unexpected happened in that dungeon. Instead of murmuring, Paul and Silas began to sing. They prayed. They praised. They invoked a freedom that no human key could unlock. And the moment the praise rose, the heavens moved. The text says that about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Suddenly there was such a great earthquake that the foundations of the prison moved, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's chains were loosed. Acts 16:25-26. This story carries a powerful truth. Sometimes God doesn't take you out of prison. He turns prison into an altar. Maybe anxiety won't go away overnight. Maybe bad feelings still try to visit you. But when you choose to praise in the midst of pain, something supernatural happens. The cell that holds you begins to shake. Emotional chains begin to loosen. What was anguish becomes worship. What was oppression becomes liberation. If this message is breaking chains inside you, write now in the comments, "Even in prison, I praise." Someone needs to read your testimony of faith. Someone needs to believe that there is still a way out. Do you know what the secret is hidden in this story? And few people know this truth. The prayer and praise of Paul and Silas did not just free them, they freed everyone around. Because when you decide to praise in the midst of your pain, you become a channel of liberation for other lives. Your process is not just about you. It's about what God wants to do through you. That night, the jailer who thought about taking his own life found true freedom because of their praise. Have you ever thought that your crisis could be the answer to someone's prayer? That your faithfulness in the midst of anxiety can save a soul from darkness? Comment, "My pain will be the seed of salvation," and let God use your story as an instrument. Anxiety makes you feel trapped, stuck in cycles, stuck in patterns, trapped in memories. But there is a spiritual secret that needs to be revealed. The prison of the mind can only be broken with worship. And loving is not pretending that everything is fine. It is declaring that even if He is not, God is still worthy. That even without strength, you choose to raise your voice. That even though you're shaking inside, you still trust. Praise is the weapon of those who do not deny their pain, but give it as a living sacrifice to Jesus. If this message spoke to your heart, comment, "I will praise until the chains fall off," and share it with someone who is stuck inside themselves. It could save a soul. Now close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Imagine Jesus entering the cell of your mind. He does not come with screams, but with peace. He does not bring condemnation, but freedom. He doesn't judge you for being anxious. He visits you right there where you are. Because Jesus speaks to you, This anxiety crisis is not the end. It is the moment where I want to show you that true freedom does not begin outside, but within. If this word touched your soul, write, "Jesus sets me free inside." And this is just the beginning, because what's about to be revealed in the next instant, it will change the way you see the pain you feel. Because pain is not an end, it's a portal. And what comes next is the key that can open the doors that have been closed inside you for a long time. Jose was alone, but it wasn't just any loneliness. It was the kind of silence that screams inside. The kind of abandonment that is not visible to the eye but gnaws at the chest. The promise seemed too far away. The scenery around him was too hostile. First, he was thrown into a well, then sold into slavery, slandered by those who claimed to trust, forgotten by those who promised to help him, arrested through no fault of his own. And all this after God had given him such grand dreams. How could we believe that there was purpose in so much suffering? How not to go crazy in the midst of injustice, waiting, and the absence of answers? How many times have you felt this way, swallowed by circumstances, silenced by pains that no one understands, hurt by people they were supposed to protect, waiting for promises that never seem to arrive, and the worst, without understanding the why? Anxiety arises there, in the void of meaning, in the time between promise and fulfillment, in the confusion that tries to convince us that God has forgotten us. But there is a truth hidden in this pain that can change the way you see what you are experiencing now. The text in Genesis 50:20 brings us one of the most impactful verses in the story of Joseph. "You intended evil against me, but God meant it for good, to do as it is this day, to keep many people alive." And this declaration did not come at just any time. It came after years of silence, betrayals, pain, and nights when all Jose had were memories of a promise. It came after crying, resisting temptation, continuing to believe even when everything seemed lost. It came after being promoted, yes, but also after being crushed. What Jose experienced teaches us something brutally transformative. The evil that hurt you is about to become the good that will heal others. What seems meaningless today, that destroys you from the inside, that steals your sleep and paralyzes your chest, will be used by God to generate life. Your pain will not be wasted. Your story will not be in vain. The crisis that tries to silence your soul will be the platform where the name of Jesus will be exalted. If this message is burning inside you, write in the comments, "God is turning my pain into testimony." That's not a catchphrase. It is a seed of faith. It is a spiritual statement that breaks the cycle of discouragement that anxiety tries to implant. Now think, what if what you are facing today is preparing for something that will bless thousands? What if this silence is not absence, but construction? God has not forgotten Joseph, and he has not forgotten you, even if everything says otherwise. Even if time seems cruel, even though people failed, even if anxiety tries to suffocate you, Jesus speaks to you. This crisis is not the end. It is the framework for the miracle that I am about to reveal. What few talk about is that before reaching the throne of Egypt, Joseph went through the rubble of anonymity. Before being used to save lives, he had to learn to survive when no one applauded him. The process of pain is what strengthens the soul to carry the purpose. God does not rush gold. He refines. It shapes. He transforms what seemed like punishment into eternal purpose. And that changes everything. If you feel like you are being prepared in secret, comment, "I trust God's process." Because trust is more than understanding. It's knowing that even without understanding, He is still in control. Even when everything seems bad, He is still writing something good. And here comes the most impactful moment in this story, the day Jose meets his brothers again, those who threw him into the deep end, those who laughed at your pain, the ones that made you think years ago that your dreams were dead. But now they stood before Joseph, not as accusers, but as those in need. And there, instead of revenge, Jose releases forgiveness. Instead of revolt, he offers food. Instead of returning evil, he fulfills good. Why those who understand the purpose of pain do not turn their story into a weapon, but into a cure. If you want to be this channel of healing, declare in the comments, "My pain will be used to feed lives." Someone needs your courage. Someone needs your hope. Someone is waiting for you to stay strong too. Take a deep breath now. Close your eyes if you can. Allow yourself to feel this truth. God is in control of your journey. Even when everything seems off course, you are not forgotten. You are being shaped, and what seems like injustice will turn out to be providence. Why nothing you have lived will be in vain when handed over to Jesus. And here's a revelation that could change everything. Maybe the miracle you are waiting for is not coming from outside, but being born within you. And that's why it hurts. Because when God transforms, he starts from the inside out. He does not build on open wounds, he heals. He cleans, he restores, and then he lifts. If you are ready to be restored, comment, "Lord, use my pain for your glory." And share this message with someone who needs to know that their crisis also has a purpose. Because what seems meaningless is exactly what God will use to touch other lives. And now, what is about to be revealed, it will change the way you see the past, the present, and even your future. Because God doesn't just transform pain, he converts it into destiny. And what comes next could be the answer your heart has been asking for so long. The rubble was still on the ground, the dust impregnated in the calloused hands. The people looked around and saw only destruction. The walls of Jerusalem were in ruins, and with them the hearts of those people had also been crumbled. This was not just a destroyed city, it was a reflection of a nation broken from within. A people gripped by fear, paralyzed by shame, imprisoned by the anxiety of not knowing how to start over. It was as if the eyes could no longer see anything other than what was lost. There were no forces, there was no faith, there was no enthusiasm, until Nehemiah appeared. Nehemiah was not a king, he was not a priest, he was not a warrior, he was a butler. Just that, an ordinary man in a servile position who heard about the pain of his people and could no longer sleep in peace. His heart burned. His soul cried for something that others had become accustomed to ignoring. And that was exactly what made him used by God. When everyone had accepted the rubble as part of the landscape, Nehemiah decided to stand up. And it was this decision that became the key. How many times does anxiety make you look at your life and see nothing but ruins? Relationships that fell apart, dreams that were lost, projects that never got off the ground, and you think it's too late. It's beyond repair. I've already accepted that it's going to be like this. But Jesus speaks to you now. This anxiety attack is not the end. Listen before it knocks you down. There is something inside you that still pulses, still crying, still want to rebuild. And that is exactly why you are here listening to this message. Because reconstruction doesn't start from the outside. It starts within your spirit. Nehemiah listened, fasted, prayed, and acted. When no one else believed, he stood up with a certainty in his chest. The God of heaven will give us success. Nehemiah 2:20. This statement did not come after everything went well. She came when everything was still down. Nehemiah declared victory in the midst of chaos. And this is what God is calling you to do today. Proclaim restoration while there is still rubble before your eyes. Anxiety lies. She says you are alone. He says there is no solution. He says no one cares. But there is a God who is already showing you at this very moment the first bricks of your reconstruction. God doesn't just see what's fallen, he walks with you among the rubble. And when you think you are lost, he already has plans ready to rebuild what has collapsed. If this word is awakening something inside you, comment now, "Lord, rebuild my life." This is more than a sentence. It's a surrender. It's the moment when you decide to leave the wreckage and raise your eyes to the sky, believing that yes, there is still a future, even when the past has been left in pieces. And here comes something that few realize. The reconstruction in Nehemiah began with prayer and was sustained by emotional resistance. He faced mockery, threats, external and internal pressure, but it didn't stop. Because when God puts something inside you, no enemy on the outside can stop it. You may be tired, shaken, emotionally overwhelmed, but this word is for you. The God of heaven will give us success, and this success is not just material, it's spiritual. It's emotional. It is a peace that rebuilds from within. Do you know what is strongest in this story? Nehemiah didn't just rebuild walls. He rebuilt identity. When anxiety tries to bury you in the rubble, Jesus arrives and lifts your essence. You are not the mistakes you made. You are not the one who fell apart. You are not the diagnosis. You are not the fear. You are a child of God, and He is in this process with you. If this message spoke to your heart, comment, "I believe in God's reconstruction." Maybe no one knows what you have been through. Maybe you don't even know how to explain how you feel, but God knows. He sees, He understands, and He doesn't give up on you, not now. Not in the middle of the work. Why what He started, He will finish. And here comes the twist. While Nehemiah was rebuilding on the outside, God was restoring on the inside. Emotions, faith, hope. And that's exactly what He wants to do with you. It's not just about fixing what's broken. It's about transforming yourself while it happens. So don't worry if you still see debris around you. Continue laying the bricks of prayer, fasting, words, faith, because the entire sky is moving in your favor. If you are tired but still believe, declare, "Even in ruins, I will not stop, because there is something bigger waiting for you, something that will make all this effort worth it, something that can only be born after chaos, something that only those who have been through the ruins will understand." And what comes next? It will change the way you interpret every fall, every tear, every moment you thought about giving up. Because what God is building in you will sustain many. Get ready. Because the foundation has been laid, and the heavens are saying it will begin to rise. His mind was like a battlefield, a mix of memories from the past, still open pain, and a suffocating silence that seemed to have no end. It was as if the soul was screaming for help, but no one was listening. It was in this state that the psalmist wrote, "Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you troubled within me? Wait for God." Psalms 42:5. This question, although it seems simple, carries a depth that directly touches those who live surrounded by negative thoughts. Because this is not a question for others, it's an internal scream. A questioning of the soul to itself, a desperate attempt to rescue sanity in the midst of chaos. How many times have you found yourself immersed in a whirlwind of thoughts that seem to pull you deeper and deeper? Memories that haunt you, internal voices that accuse you, fears that take shape and suffocate you in the middle of the night. This is the reality of those who are living with a mind dominated by anxiety, sadness, guilt, doubt. The soul is downcast, yes. But the worst thing is when we start to think this is normal, when we stop fighting these thoughts and start living beneath them as if they were part of who we are. But Jesus speaks to you now. This anxiety attack is not the end. Listen before it knocks you down. Because what you are feeling does not define your identity. These dark thoughts are not your truth. And there is a way to bring your mind back. There is a way to silence the inner turmoil. And it begins when, like the psalmist, you stop accepting suffering as part of your essence and start talking to your soul. That's the secret, speaking to the soul. Confront her, wake her up. Don't let it dictate the course of your life, because when you submit to how you feel, you lose sight of what God has promised. And that is why the psalmist, even in deep pain, ends with an imperative of faith. Wait in God. It's not advice. It's a decision. It is the soul being pulled back into the light. If you identify with this silent struggle in your mind, write in the comments, "I am returning to God." This is a declaration of war against the thoughts that have imprisoned you. It is the beginning of a new phase where your mind will begin to be renewed by the truth. And here comes what many ignore. Negative thoughts don't come out of nowhere. They feed on wrong narratives that you have believed for too long, things they said about you, traumas you never dealt with, unresolved situations that were stored in your soul like corrupted files. But the good news is that Jesus doesn't just heal emotions, he reprograms the mind. It transforms the way you think, feel, react, and that changes everything. You no longer need to wake up feeling suffocated. You no longer need to live in fear of yourself. You no longer need to hide from your own conscience, because the Word of God declares that we have the mind of Christ. And that means there is peace available, there is direction, there is clarity. If this word is touching you, comment now. Jesus, clear my mind. You may have lived for years with a downcast soul, but seconds in his presence are enough for everything to change, because where Jesus enters, dark thoughts lose their power. Where his light shines, no lie can remain. Where his name is invoked, even the deepest emotional abyss begins to recede. And here's the wow the enemy doesn't want you to realize. Your mind has more power than you realize. If it is aligned with God's truth, you become unshakable. You see clearly, discover what previously confused you. React with spiritual maturity, act wisely. Sleep in peace, wake up with purpose. Therefore, do not underestimate the power of mind renewal. Don't accept living with thoughts that kill you inside. Jesus speaks to you. Bring your mind to me and I will make it new. It won't just silence the noise. It will give you a new way of thinking, feeling, living. And this will affect everything around you. Your relationships, your decisions, your faith, your peace. If you need healing in your mind, declare with faith, Jesus is my balance. Because yes, he is. He calms the external storms, but also the storms that form inside us. And when he releases his word, even the most wounded soul finds rest. Take a deep breath now. Don't run away from this moment. Close your eyes and imagine Jesus speaking directly to your heart. Say with him, "Why are you cast down, O my soul? Hope in God." This is not just a verse. It's a calling, an invitation to surrender. A reminder that you are not alone in this war. The Holy Spirit is with you, and he is your very present help in times of trouble. And what comes next, it will open your eyes to something even deeper. Because emotional pain doesn't end when it passes. It ends when you understand what it taught you. When you let Jesus enter and transform every part of your soul. And the next story will show that even with a past marked by guilt, there is a future ready to be rewritten by God. Get ready, because what you will feel will take you to a new level of liberation. He carried a guilt that burned inside, like silent embers that could not be extinguished even with time. His name was Saul, known among religious people as zealous, firm, faithful to the law. But in essence, he was a man at war. Behind the authority and conviction, there was a heart blinded by justice itself. And by persecuting those who followed the way, he thought he was doing right, until a light knocked him over. A voice stopped him, and there on the ground without strength he heard, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" It was at that moment that everything turned around. He was not just guilty, he was forgiven, transformed, rewritten. And perhaps right now you are feeling like Saul. Not because of what you are doing, but because of what you have already done. Guilt over the past has the power to scream louder than any voice of hope. She reminds you of mistakes, of wrong choices, of words spoken that can no longer be taken back. And worst of all, it tries to convince your mind that you have lost the right to be loved by God. But today, Jesus speaks to you. This anxiety attack is not the end. Listen before it knocks you down. Because there is a powerful truth that needs to reach the deepest part of your heart. Your past is not your destiny. The Apostle Paul wrote, "Forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal." Philippians 3:13. Understand, he did not say that the past was erased from memory. He didn't say he forgot the faces he hurt, the wounds he caused. He just decided not to be defined by it. He decided to remember grace more than guilt, more from the new name he received than from the mistakes he made. And that's what God is offering you now, a new name, a new story, a new beginning. If this message is touching you, write in the comments, "Jesus gives me a new beginning," because there is power in declaring that you are no longer a slave to shame, that your identity is being rebuilt by the love that reached you even when you thought you were unforgivable. Because if Jesus forgave Paul, the persecutor, he forgives you too. And here's the twist. Guilt over the past isn't just a feeling, it's a prison. But unlike physical prisons, this one is emotional, spiritual. And like every prison, it needs a key. The key to freedom is not to forget what happened, but to surrender everything to Jesus, not to hide, but to expose before him. When you do this, the healing begins. And what was a source of shame became a testimony. What made you lower your head now makes you talk about grace. Because like Paul, you start to say, "I was the worst, but I was caught up." If you carry old guilt, declare now, "Jesus is greater than my past," because he is. And he doesn't just erase what happened, he turns it into a platform. Paul was not just forgiven, it was used. The same man who destroyed churches now planted churches. What had caused fear now carried hope. And that's what Jesus wants to do with you. Turn the key to your story, showing that where guilt says it's over, grace responds, "I start over here." You need to hear this with your heart. It doesn't matter what they said about you. It doesn't matter how many times you fall. If you are alive, it is because God still wants to use you. Take a deep breath and allow yourself to believe that there is still purpose for you. Jesus speaks to you, "I know what you have done, but I also know who you can be in me." This is the difference between damnation and redemption. Condemnation fixes you in error. Redemption pushes you towards your destiny. And maybe right now you're feeling an internal struggle, as if something is resisting the idea of total forgiveness. This happens because guilt takes root. But the blood of Jesus uproots everything. He doesn't mop. He passes the cross, and the cross says it's paid. All, completely. Nothing was left pending, not a trace, not a fragment. You can live free. If you desire this release, comment, "I receive forgiveness from Jesus," because that statement has power. She breaks accusations. It silences internal voices. It changes the atmosphere. And what you feel now, this lightness, this warmth in your chest, is the Holy Spirit saying you are no longer a prisoner of yesterday. And here comes something that can change the way you see everything. God doesn't use perfect people. He uses broken hearts, people who surrender, who admit they made a mistake, but don't want to live in it. People who recognize that if it's up to them, they can't do it. But with Jesus, everything is possible. All the anxiety generated by guilt is destructive. She arrests. It sucks the joy. But today, something new is being poured into you. Jesus is cleansing your soul. It's restoring your confidence. It's saying, "Walk with me. Don't look back," because when he forgives, he doesn't throw your past in your face. He casts it into the sea of oblivion. And it puts you on a new path. And here's a question that might wake you up. Have you ever forgiven yourself? Because sometimes the problem isn't even believing that God forgave. It's accepting that forgiveness. But heaven is not in crisis about who you are. Heaven has already decided to love you. Now it's your turn to decide to live like someone you love. If this message spoke to your heart, write, "I accept grace," because accepting is the first step to walking lightly, healed, redeemed. And what is to come will show you that even the greatest paralysis of the soul can be broken when Jesus extends his hand. The next story will prove that nothing, Absolutely nothing can keep someone stuck when the Master says, "Get up and walk. Get ready, because the days of your soul's paralysis are numbered." He had been there for 38 years. 38 years paralyzed. 38 years of watching life go by, seeing others receive miracles, hearing stories of healings, testimonies of transformation, while he remained in the same place, at the edge of the pool of Bethesda, surrounded by hope and frustration at the same time, because nothing is more cruel than believing in a miracle and not being next. Nothing hurts more than seeing healing so close and feeling like it never reaches you. Time passed, strength was gone, faith was almost erased. But that day Jesus entered that scene, not with pity, but with power, and with a soul-piercing question: do you want to be healed? The answer could be simple, but it wasn't. The paralytic said, "Lord, I have no one to help me." His pain wasn't just physical, it was emotional. It was existential. He didn't just feel trapped on the floor. He felt forgotten in time. Maybe you feel this way now. Anxiety has paralyzed you. Fears keep you immobile. The desire to move forward exists, but it seems like something invisible is holding you back. You want to get up, but you can't. He is mentally lying down, emotionally stopped, spiritually exhausted, and each day that passes feels like a reminder that everyone is moving forward except you. But today, Jesus speaks to you. This anxiety attack is not the end. Listen before it brings you down, because the same Jesus who looked into that man's eyes 2,000 years ago is looking into yours now. Get up, take up your bed and walk. John 5:8. Those words weren't just a command, they were a liberation. Jesus didn't say, "when you feel ready," or "wait for the next opportunity." He said, "Now, in the midst of pain, in the midst of paralysis, in the place where everyone has already given up believing." And that's exactly how he wants to act in your life. At the exact point where you thought you'd never leave again. He is not waiting for you to become strong. He is your strength. He is not asking you to get up alone. He extends his hand to you. If this word is speaking to you, write, "Jesus, lift me up today," because recognizing that you need help is not weakness. It's courage and faith, because sometimes all you need is one step, a small movement, a gesture of surrender. And the rest, he does it. Soul paralysis is sneaky. It stops you from dreaming, to try, to love, to trust. It doesn't just manifest itself in bodies that don't walk, but in hearts that no longer believe. And this is where Jesus enters, not to accuse you for standing still, but to empower you to move forward. He understands the tiredness. He sees the time that has passed, but what he offers you today is stronger than the years of pain. He offers you life, movement, purpose. Have you ever felt trapped in something no one sees? Because emotional paralysis is invisible, but real. And Jesus came to free even that which no one can name. It touches the root. He heals where psychology cannot reach. It goes where medicines can't go. And when he says walk, it's not just about the body, it's about the mind. It's about faith. It's about your story walking again. What is this bed that he tells you to carry? It is the symbol of what paralyzed you. But now you carry what once carried you. The bed becomes a testimony. And Jesus is saying, take with you the sign of the miracle, but walk. Go forward. Anxiety has trapped you, but it no longer defines your steps. Fear has frozen you, but it no longer controls your decisions. Insecurity dominated you, but it no longer dictates your destiny. If you are ready to walk in faith, declare in the comments, "I arise in the name of Jesus," because when you declare with faith, heaven moves, chains are broken, internal prisons are opened, and what seemed impossible becomes visible. Do you know what is stronger than paralysis? The voice of Jesus. One word from him changes everything. And today, that word is being released upon your life. It doesn't matter how much time has passed. Time does not cancel the promise. Delay does not destroy destiny. Jesus is still the one who calls those who are standing still and transforms them into messengers of the impossible. That man got up, walked, and was never the same again. And you? Are you going to continue lying down? How much longer are you going to wait to experience what God has? This is the moment. The pool of Bethesda today is your heart. And Jesus doesn't need stirred water to operate. He is the source itself. The movement has already begun. Now there's only one thing left, your answer. Do you want to be healed? Then get up. Come on, live. Because Jesus is here, and he speaks to you. Don't accept this paralysis anymore. What held you back has no more power. If you've made it this far, write, I refuse to remain paralyzed. Because this is more than a comment. It is a prophetic act. It's a cry from the soul. It's a new beginning, and what's coming next will show you that even when everything seems to be collapsing, the sky is still in order, and there is a force coming from above that will sustain you. Get ready, because what comes next could change the way you see everything. She was crying so hard she could barely breathe. His eyes could no longer see clearly because the tears had become permanent. His voice choked with pain, his chest tight with years of frustration. She wasn't just asking for a child. Anne was asking for dignity, for meaning, for relief. The Bible says that she continually prayed to the Lord with bitterness of soul. 1 Samuel 1:10. Such a short phrase, and yet capable of carrying the exact description of what many live in silence, because there are moments when the soul screams, but no one listens. Moments when anxiety tightens so much that the world around loses its sound. The pain suffocates. Words are lost, and the only refuge left is to bend your knees and let the tears speak for you. Maybe today you are exactly like Anna, sitting in front of a pain that no one understands, surrounded by voices that say it will pass, it's just a phase, but that don't see the depth of your anguish. You're trying to hold on, but inside you're imploding. You feel like you're at your limit, and that limit seems so close to collapse that it's scary. You no longer know how to continue, but you also don't know how to stop. And it is at this exact point of exhaustion that Jesus speaks to you. This anxiety attack is not the end. Listen before it brings you down. Because what looks like breakdown can be the beginning of healing. What seems like rock bottom could be the place where God begins to rewrite your story. Anna didn't give up. She prayed, and it was not a beautiful, decorated, theological prayer. It was a torn, raw prayer, full of pain and truth. She was so involved in her delivery that Eli, the priest, thought she was drunk. But she wasn't drunk, it was broken. I was being honest. He was saying to God, if you see me, 1 Samuel 1:11. And that is the cry of the soul that lives on the brink of collapse. God, see me, because deep down what we want most is not for everything to be resolved at once. We just want to know if it is still being seen, if it still matters, if God is still there. And he is. The whole sky moves when a heart cries out with truth. Anna's prayer was not trapped in the temple. She crossed time, broke the silence, and changed the history of Israel. Because God didn't just respond with a son, he handed her a prophet, a landmark, a response so much greater than she had asked for. And this is how Jesus acts. He takes the pain that almost destroyed you and turns it into a purpose that can transform the world. If you are praying with bitterness of soul, write in the comments, Lord, see me. This statement is not just any rant. It's a seed. It's the first step towards a movement that can reach places in your life that you didn't even imagine existed yet. Because God's answer doesn't always come at the time we want, but it always comes with more than we expect. Maybe you think you can't take it anymore. That has come to an end. But what if this end is just the beginning that God was waiting for? What if this breakdown is actually the surrender you were resisting? There's something powerful when we stop pretending we're okay, when we pray without a filter, when we fall at the feet of Jesus in pain and say, I don't know what to do anymore. From that place, miracles happen. Anna returned home without a child, but it came back different. Because whoever pours out their soul before God never returns the same. She no longer cried like she used to. She had left what weighed on her heart in God's hands, and maybe that's exactly what you need to do today. Stop carrying yourself. Release, deliver. Breathe and say, Lord, if you see me, remember me. If this message is touching you deeply, comment, I give my bitterness to Jesus. Because there is healing in vulnerability. There is power in sincerity. There is new life when we stop fighting alone and start walking with the Savior. And now, take a deep breath. Because what is about to be revealed could change everything you believe about God's silence. Because while you think you are wasting time, He is building something eternal. While you feel like you are on the verge of collapse, He is setting the stage for the miracle. And this miracle has already begun. Jeremiah was a prophet, a chosen one. But he was also a man, a human being with a vulnerable heart and a wounded soul. Many know him as the crying prophet, not out of weakness, but out of sensitivity. Jeremiah felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He saw the imminent destruction, warned the people with courage, but was constantly rejected, misunderstood, ignored. He screamed inside while everyone around him continued as if nothing was happening. Have you ever felt this? As if your scream of pain was invisible, as if your tears had no sound, as if no one, absolutely no one, could understand what was going on inside you. That was the place where Jeremiah was. A place of silent pain, of tears that cannot find a shoulder, of words that die in the chest. But in the midst of his anguish, he declared something powerful. You have searched me and you know me. Psalms 139:1. This phrase seems simple, but it is a balm for afflicted souls. When everyone around you fails to understand your pain, God doesn't just understand. He probes you. He searches the deepest part of your soul. He enters where no one else can enter. When you feel like no one really sees you, Jesus speaks to you. He says, I know you. I see what others don't see. I know where it hurts. And it is in this invisible place, hidden from human eyes, that He touches, that He heals, that He restores. Anxiety often arises from this feeling of incomprehension, the feeling that you are alone in an emotional maze and no one has the map to get you out of there. People ask if you are okay and you say, I am, because explaining what is really going on would be too complicated, too painful. And sometimes you don't even know exactly what's going on inside you. It's just a tightness, a knot, an internal storm. But God knows even what you have not yet been able to verbalize. What you call confusion, He calls sacred territory. He goes there, where even you can't go alone. Jeremiah prayed through tears, wrote letters that sounded like muffled screams. And even though he was used by God, he questioned, cried, felt lost. This shows you that being from God does not exempt you from emotional pain. Don't shield yourself from anxiety, but it offers you something the world can never offer, meaning in the midst of chaos, relief in the midst of pressure, voice when everything goes silent. Have you ever asked yourself why you feel so much? Why do you carry this nameless weight? Perhaps you, like Jeremiah, have a deep calling. Maybe your sensitivity is a divine tool, not a weakness. Maybe this pain that visits you often is, in fact, a reminder that God wants to use you where few could bear to be. And that's why He knows you so deeply, because He needs you completely, including your pain, your wounds, your tears. If this message spoke to you, comment now. Jesus understands me completely, because declaring this is like opening a window into the soul. It's like letting light into the dark room where anxiety hides. God does not reject you when you are broken. It brings you closer. It reveals itself in its pieces.
And even when no one else can, your silences, He hears every beat, your restless. If this were your link the so that others can also be blessed.
This is more than a click. It's a seed of healing you plant in someone's life. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it right now. When you sign up, you are saying, "Lord, I want to keep hearing your voice." Here, each video is a new chance to find direction, healing, and purpose. You are not alone, and it never was. If everything around you seems incomprehensible, remember, there is a God who probes you and knows you, who knows what others ignore, who understands what you are still trying to discover within yourself. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder. It could be what saves a life today. And write in the comments, "I made it to the end," so we know you are with us on this journey. Your testimony, your presence, your click could be exactly what God will use to reach another hurting soul right now. Before there was a word on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you knew everything. Psalms 139:4. This is proof that he has always been with you. Now go to the next video. What you will hear there may be what was needed for your release. Don't ignore this. Click watch, because there is something waiting for you that could change everything. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. Isaiah 40:31. You have just gone through a deep dive into the pain that the soul tries to hide. Anxiety, fear, abandonment, paralysis, a feeling of suffocation, the desire to give up. Perhaps throughout this video you saw yourself in more than one of these stories. Maybe you cried in silence, remembering sleepless nights, unanswered prayers, muffled screams inside your chest. But in each block, a truth was breathed into his heart. Jesus speaks to you, and he says, "This anxiety attack is not the end. This anguish that seems to consume you does not have the power to destroy you, because what holds your life is not chaos, it is Christ." You were reminded that even when everything seems to fall apart, there is still a way, there is still purpose, there is still life pulsing within you. Perhaps, for the first time in a long time, you felt like someone truly understood you. That word did not come by chance. That God used this screen to reach where no one else could. And now, after everything you've heard, I want to invite you to the most important moment of this video. Stop for a few seconds, take a deep breath, silence the surrounding noise, because now I'm not the one talking. It is God who wants to hear you. It's time to pray. It's time to deliver. It's time to surrender. If you've come this far, it's because God is working in your life. This is no coincidence. It's careful, it's purpose. So close your eyes and pray with me now. Lord Jesus, I recognize that I am tired. Anxiety has tried to take over my mind, my emotions, my body, but today I heard your voice. Today I felt that you saw me in the midst of pain. Therefore I surrender to you what I can no longer carry. I surrender my fears, my doubts, my sleepless nights. I give you my broken heart, and I receive your comfort. Strengthen me, Jesus. Restore me. Help me to get up and continue. Because I believe there is still a way, and that way is with you. If this was your prayer, comment now. I made it to the end. That's not just a sentence, it's a testimony. It's the mark of someone who chose to fight another day. And your comment may be exactly what someone needs to read to not give up either. Share this message with someone who is experiencing the same despair. You can be the bridge between pain and healing in someone's life. Subscribe to the channel, because the next videos will continue to guide you on this path of restoration and reunion with Jesus. And don't leave now, because the video that is appearing on your screen is the continuation of this message. It brings the answer you're still waiting for, the comfort you were missing, the direction you need. Click now. What comes next could be what was needed for his release. Don't miss it, don't postpone. God is still speaking to you. Crying may last for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Psalms 35.